The gavel had not even struck yet, and already the smell of varnished oak and floor polish was mixing with the stale air of that courtroom. The place hummed with whispers, the kind of low murmur that carries both pity and curiosity. Everyone there thought they knew how this would play out. I sat stiffly at the petitioner's table, my posture straight in my press dress blues. I did not have to wear my uniform, but I wanted the reminder of who I was before all this, the soldier, the man who had given years of his life to missions no one outside the service would ever understand. Now here I was, medals and sacrifice boiled down into a divorce hearing. Across from me sat Emily, soon to be my ex-wife. Perfect nails tapping like a metronome against the polished wood. Next to her was Brandon, her new man. He was not just any man though, he was her boyfriend and her lawyer. Tall, slick hair, the kind of expensive suit that screamed arrogance, and a smirk that made me want to break his jaw. He leaned back in his chair like he owned the room. "The judge is a friend of mine," he said casually, loud enough for me to hear. "You're walking out of here with nothing, soldier." Emily gave a sly smile and turned toward me. "He is too scared to even speak. Just look at him." Brandon reached into his briefcase, pulled out a document, and slid it across the table toward me with a theatrical flick of his hand. "Sign it. Now." I lowered my eyes to the paper. A property settlement, if you could even call it that. It stripped me of everything, the house, the savings, even my truck. All the years I worked, the sacrifices, the deployments, the nights she cried and said she could not sleep without me, all reduced to a single sheet of paper. It was theft. Legalized theft. I did not pick up the pen. Instead, I looked straight at him. My voice came out calm, almost casual, but with an edge sharp enough to cut. "You really have no idea who I am, do you?" 3 years earlier, if someone had told me this would be my life, I would have laughed in their face. Back then, Emily was my anchor, or at least I thought she was. We met while I was still on active duty. She said she admired my discipline, my sense of duty, the loyalty that kept me going through deployments. I believed her. I thought she meant every word. But even then, I noticed something. Her eyes lit up at the military banquets and base events, not because she was proud to be on my arm, but because she loved the spotlight. She thrived on introductions to high-ranking officers, loved when the other wives leaned in to listen to her. She fed off the attention like it was oxygen. When I rotated back stateside and took a desk role at the base, things shifted. The excitement faded. She complained about the hours, complained that I was not the same man she had married. I chalked it up to an adjustment period, but deep down I knew something had cracked. Then came the late work dinners, the phone calls she took out in the garage, the sudden obsession with her appearance. I wanted to believe the excuses. I really did. But the truth slapped me in the face one night. I came home early from a training seminar, walked into my living room, and froze. There they were, Emily and Brandon, wine glasses half full on the table, his jacket draped over the back of my chair like he owned the place. Brandon did not even flinch. He just smiled that smug lawyer's smile and said, "Guess you are home early, soldier." It was not just betrayal. It was mockery. When I found out later that he was taking her case for the divorce, and worse, that he had connections with the judge, I knew this would not be a fair fight. But I had fought unfair battles before, and I had never walked in unprepared. Back in that courtroom, I let my silence stretch. I did not touch the pen. I leaned back in my chair, letting them think I was hesitating out of fear. In truth, my silence was deliberate. For 3 long months, I had been building my own case. Not with some overpriced divorce lawyer, but with the skills and contacts I had picked up during service. I dug into bank records. I traced the hidden accounts she thought I would never find. I spoke to mutual friends she had burned and gathered their statements. Most importantly, I documented everything. The affair. The lies. The secret dinners and the whispered conversations. And the biggest card in my hand? The shady ties between Brandon and the judge. A buddy of mine in the Criminal Investigation Division had helped me set up a perfectly legal wire. One night, during one of their smug celebratory dinners, I got everything. They laughed openly about burying the soldier. Brandon joked. The judge will sign whatever we put in front of him. I had the whole thing on a clean audio file, labeled neatly, for court, Exhibit C. I kept my face blank as I looked toward the judge. He gave me a polite, expectant nod, certain this was going to be over in a matter of minutes. Brandon tapped the document again. Sign it, soldier. Save yourself the humiliation. This time, I almost smiled. You sure about that? I asked quietly, keeping my voice steady even though the tension in the room could have been cut with a knife. The judge cleared his throat, his patience already thinning. Mr. Walker, either sign the agreement or state your objection. I stood up slowly, buttoning my dress jacket with deliberate calm. Your Honor, I do have an objection. And more than that, I have an additional piece of evidence. The lawyer let out a sharp laugh and rolled his eyes like I had just told the oldest joke in the book. Your Honor, this is nothing but a stall tactic. There's no new evidence on record. I didn't flinch. I reached into my briefcase, pulled out a small digital recorder, and placed it on the table between us with a quiet click. Actually, there is. It's labeled for submission as Exhibit C. The entire room shifted at once. A ripple of whispers spread across the gallery, the clerk sat up straighter in her chair, and even the bailiff leaned slightly forward. The judge's brow tightened. Proceed. Without hesitation, I pressed play. The courtroom filled with the arrogant, self-satisfied voice of Brandon Cole, the man sitting just a few feet away from me. Don't worry, babe. The judge will sign whatever we put in front of him. We'll bleed him dry and toast to it in Cabo. And then came the sound that cut me to the bone, Emily's laughter. My wife's laughter. He's too scared to fight back, she said, her voice light, mocking, and unmistakable. By the time he realizes, the house, the accounts, everything, will be ours. A gasp swept through the spectators like a gust of wind. I caught movement in my peripheral vision, Emily's eyes going wide, her perfect mask cracking at last. Her lawyer jumped to his feet so fast his chair nearly tipped. Objection. This is an invasion of privacy. The judge's gavel slammed down like thunder. Overruled. Continued the recording. I pressed the button again, and the next words were the ones I'd been waiting to unleash. Brandon's voice, dripping with smug confidence. Even if he tries, I'll bury him. The judge is my buddy. We've done this before. The judge leaned forward, his face tight, eyes locked onto Brandon. His voice was low, controlled, but icy enough to freeze the room. Is that your voice, counselor? For the first time since I'd met him, Brandon's cocky grin vanished. The color drained from his face, and his mouth worked without sound. The silence that followed was suffocating. Even the hum of the air conditioner above us suddenly felt too loud. Brandon swallowed hard, his voice barely audible now. Your Honor, this is being taken out of context. The judge's gavel cracked against the bench again, sharp and final. Mr. Cole, do not insult this court with flimsy excuses. This recording demonstrates clear collusion and misconduct. Bailiff, seize that device for evidence. 2 bailiffs moved in with mechanical precision. One retrieved the recorder. The other stood firmly at Brandon's side, his presence an unspoken warning. Emily looked between me and the man she'd pinned her hopes on, and for the first time I saw it, realization dawning that the fortress she thought she'd built was crumbling around her. The judge turned his attention back to me, his tone brisk but fair. Mr. Walker, I will be reviewing this evidence thoroughly. For now, all asset transfer requests are frozen pending investigation. Custody arrangements will remain unchanged until this court decides otherwise. I gave a respectful nod. Thank you, Your Honor. I have every confidence the full truth will come to light. What I didn't say out loud was that I still had more evidence tucked away. Photographs. Bank transfer records. and one particular email tying Emily and Brandon to an offshore account in the Caymans. That card would be played when the time was right. Brandon bent toward Emily, whispering with a desperation that didn't match the cocky man I'd seen swagger into the courtroom earlier. His voice carried enough for me to hear. "We need to settle before this escalates. If the judge digs deeper." Her reply was sharp, clipped with anger. "Settle? We're not giving him anything." I just leaned back, watching them unravel. This wasn't about what I stood to gain anymore. No, this was about watching them lose everything they thought they had stolen from me. Court adjourned early that day, but instead of going home, I walked straight to the district attorney's office downtown. Waiting for me in the lobby was my old contact from CID, a man I trusted with my life. He handed me a thick folder, heavy with the weight of truth. Inside were the rest of my findings: bank transfers funneled from Emily's joint account with Brandon, email threads about moving money off the radar, and, my personal favorite, a glossy photo of the two of them sipping cocktails in the Maldives. That particular trip? Emily had told me she was attending a women's leadership conference. The district attorney flipped slowly through the folder, her sharp eyes scanning each page. The deeper she went, the harder her jaw tightened. Finally, she set the folder down, folded her hands, and looked directly at me. "Mr. Walker," she said, her tone firm and steady, "this isn't just family court fraud. What you have here is evidence of criminal conspiracy. This is conspiracy, financial misconduct, and bribery of a public official," the district attorney said firmly, her eyes narrowing as she closed the folder. "We'll be opening a criminal investigation immediately." By the time I walked out of her office that afternoon, warrants were already being drafted. I didn't even have to ask. The machine of justice was in motion now, and it was aimed directly at the people who thought they'd outsmart me. The following week, I stepped back into the courthouse. The energy in the room felt completely different. Tense. Heavy. Like everyone already knew something was about to break wide open. Brandon Cole, the once smug attorney who had laughed in my face, kept his eyes glued to the table. He didn't dare look at me. Two men in dark suits from Internal Affairs stood at the back, watching everything with sharp expressions. The judge shuffled his papers, then raised his gaze to the gallery. "Before we proceed," he said slowly, "this court has been made aware of ongoing criminal inquiries involving certain parties here present. As such, all divorce proceedings are hereby suspended pending the outcome of said investigation." He paused, letting the words settle like a hammer blow. Then his eyes moved to Brandon. "Furthermore, Mr. Cole, you are removed from this case effective immediately. Bailiff, please escort Mr. Cole to the side chamber for questioning." The gasp that left Emily's lips was almost theatrical, like something out of a bad play. She reached for Brandon's arm, desperate, but he didn't even glance back at her. He just stood and followed the bailiff, shoulders hunched, his swagger gone. I leaned just slightly toward her so she could hear my voice. "You told me I had no choice," I whispered. "You were right. I didn't. I had to destroy you." Her face went pale. She understood now. This was no longer just about money or custody. It was about consequences. And it was far from over. 3 weeks later, the story exploded. Local headlines blared: prominent attorney and mistress accused of bribing judge, defrauding veteran in divorce case. By the second day, national outlets had picked it up. Every news station replayed snippets of the audio I had submitted into evidence. Her laughter. His arrogant promises. Again and again, their voices filled living rooms and news feeds across the country. My phone buzzed nonstop. Old friends, fellow soldiers, even people I hadn't heard from in a decade, sending congratulations, support, and sometimes apologies for doubting me. Meanwhile, Emily's carefully constructed world was crumbling. Brandon was disbarred within the month and faced up to 12 years in prison. His buddy, the judge, was suspended, stripped of his cases, and staring down ethics violations and possible bribery charges. And Emily? She wasn't spared. She was charged as a co-conspirator. The district attorney froze her accounts, seized the luxury car she flaunted around town, and repossessed the downtown condo she had secretly bought for herself using my money. Her family, once smug and vocal, suddenly went quiet. Word got around that they had mortgaged their own home to cover her ballooning legal fees. The people who used to sneer at me now avoided my eyes in public. But the real moment I had been waiting for came during the final hearing. A new judge, one with no ties to anyone in the case, sat at the bench. He leafed through the thick file, then looked directly at me. "Mr. Walker," he said, his tone crisp, "in light of overwhelming evidence of misconduct, this court grants you full custody of your children, sole ownership of all disputed assets, and immediate dissolution of your marriage. Mrs. Walker is ordered to pay restitution once she is legally able." The sound of the gavel striking echoed through the chamber like a gunshot. Emily's hands shook. Her eyes were glassy. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and as I walked past her, I said quietly, "No other choice, remember? When I stepped outside, my kids were waiting with my father. They smiled at me, genuine smiles I hadn't seen in months. That moment was worth more than any house, car, or bank account." 2 months after that day, long after the dust had started to settle, an envelope showed up in my mailbox. The handwriting on the front was shaky, almost desperate. Emily's. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "I can't find work. I can't pay rent. Please. Just enough to get me through until I find something. For the kids' sake." There was no apology. No ownership of what she'd done. Just the assumption that I would, once again, be her safety net. I placed her letter into a new envelope. Along with it, I slipped in a photograph I had taken the weekend before. It was me, my kids, my father, and my new partner, standing on the deck of the cabin I had just bought in the mountains. Everyone smiling. On the back of the photo I wrote, "You were right. I had no choice. I chose to live well without you." 2 weeks later, a mutual friend told me she had been evicted. She was living in a rundown roadside motel, sharing a room with strangers, surviving off the little cash she could scrape together. Meanwhile, I was signing a contract for a major security project overseas, a 6-figure deal that would set my family up for years. And that was when the final truth settled in for me. Betrayal doesn't just burn bridges. It leaves you stranded on an island you set on fire yourself. And from a distance, watching her world collapse, I realized something important. Sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's walking away, living well, and never looking back. Was this revenge perfectly justified? Tell me what you think in the comments. If you believe this story was justified, hit the like button, share it with someone who needs this energy today, and subscribe to Red Flag Stories for more jaw-dropping tales of betrayal and justice. Because here, every lie meets its reckoning, and every betrayal finds its shadow. Stay sharp. Stay strong. And stay tuned.